The alien girl was chained to the sacrificial pillar. Only a human was foolish enough to.
The foolish human and the bound warrior. Connor Hayes had seen many strange things in his time traveling through the galaxy, but this was new. The sky burned orange over the alien city of Verishtal, its towering spires stretching toward the stars. At the heart of the Grand Temple, a massive stone pillar stood tall, carved with glowing symbols. A woman, if that's what she was chained to it, surrounded by dozens of armored warriors. Connor crouched behind a half-broken archway, gripping his stolen plasma pistol. He had no idea what was going on, but one thing was clear: she was not there by choice. The woman, Valzira, stood proud despite the heavy iron chains wrapped around her wrists. Her long midnight blue hair was braided with golden rings, and her skin had a faint violet hue, shimmering under the temple's torches. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't even struggling. Connor could tell she was a warrior. The problem was, the warriors around her were bigger. They wore dark crimson battle armor, their reptilian faces locked in serious expressions. Each of them carried bladed staffs, their sharp edges gleaming. One, probably the leader, stepped forward and spoke in a deep, rumbling voice. In accordance with the laws of the Kari, Valzira, daughter of the warlord, shall be bound to Lord Kyrex and serve as his bloodsworn mate. Let the rite begin. Connor frowned. Bloodsworn? That didn't sound good. The leader raised a ceremonial dagger, stepping toward her. The crowd watched in complete silence. Connor had seen enough. Before he could think, he leaped over the broken archway and ran straight toward them. "All right, hold on. I think there's been a mistake," he shouted. Every Kari warrior whipped around to face him. Valzira's golden eyes widened. What? Connor didn't stop running. He did the one thing no sane person would do. He charged straight into the ritual, grabbed the nearest Kari warrior's weapon, and yanked it out of his hands. Chaos erupted. "Who is this fool?" the leader roared. Connor raised his hands. "Look, I know this seems bad, but I'm here to rescue the lady, all right." The entire temple went dead silent. Then, laughter. Deep, booming laughter from every warrior in the room. Connor blinked. That's not the reaction I was expecting. Valzira stared at him, stunned. "You absolute idiot." Before Connor could ask what he did wrong, the leader stepped forward, grinning. "Human, you challenge our ritual, then you accept the ancient law." Connor hesitated. "The what now?" The leader clapped his hands. More warriors stepped forward. "You have declared your intent before the gods. By interfering in a warrior's binding, you have claimed the right to replace the suitor." Connor blinked. "Wait, what?" Valzira groaned and pulled at her chains. "You just proposed to me, fool." Connor took a step back. "Hold on, I didn't mean." "Silence," the leader commanded. "You will fight for your claim, or die where you stand." Connor sighed, rubbing his temples. This was not how today was supposed to go. He looked at Valzira. She was staring at him now, really looking at him. Her gaze wasn't just annoyed anymore, it was curious. Maybe, just maybe, this foolish human wasn't so weak after all. The trial of a foolish human. Connor took a deep breath. This was bad. 1 second, he had been sneaking through an alien city, looking for a way off this planet. The next, he had accidentally proposed to a warrior princess and was now about to fight for her hand. In front of him, the Kari warriors grinned like this was the best entertainment they'd had in years. Their leader, a massive brute with scarred bronze skin and a jagged crest running down his head, pointed at Connor. "You will fight in the trial of honor," he declared. "If you lose, your blood will stain these sacred stones." Connor gulped. Great. Just great. Valzira, still chained to the pillar, shook her head. "You should run." Connor frowned. "And let them sacrifice you to some warlord. No thanks." She exhaled sharply. "I wasn't going to be sacrificed. It was a political binding. Annoying, but not deadly." Connor blinked. "So, you weren't in danger?" "No." "Oh." The Kari leader clapped his hands. "The trial begins." "Oh, well, Too late to back out now. Two warriors stepped forward, big, heavily armored, mean-looking. Each one carried a massive glaive-like weapon with serrated edges. Connor had nothing but his stolen plasma pistol, which was immediately taken away. "No weapons," the leader said. Connor sighed. Of course not. The warriors rushed at him. Connor barely dodged the first strike, the blade slashing the air where his head had been. He ducked and rolled as the second warrior swung, a wild, heavy attack that smashed into the stone floor, leaving cracks. They're strong, too strong. Connor had no chance in a direct fight. But brute strength wasn't everything. The first warrior lunged at him again. Instead of dodging, Connor stepped forward. The warrior hadn't expected that. His massive swing went wild, throwing him off balance. Connor twisted behind him and kicked the back of his knee. The warrior stumbled forward, tripping over his own weight. One down. The second warrior growled and charged. Connor sidestepped at the last second, grabbing a loose piece of chain from the ground. As the warrior turned, Connor whipped the chain forward, looping it around his opponent's wrist. With a quick pull, he yanked the warrior's own weapon out of his hand. It clattered across the stone. The crowd roared. Valzyra's eyes widened. He's clever. Connor spun the chain and smiled. Okay, anyone else? The Kari leader grinned, clearly entertained. He raised a hand, and the remaining warriors stood down. You fight well, human. Cunning, if not strong. Perhaps you are worthy. Connor sighed in relief, then realized what that meant. Wait, does that mean I won? The leader nodded. By Kari law, you are now bound to Valzyra. Connor froze. Wait, what? Valzyra groaned. You absolute idiot. The leader laughed. You may now claim your bride. Connor scratched his head. Do I get a say in this? The leader's grin widened. Not in the slightest. Valzyra, now freed from her chains, stepped forward, arms crossed. You made your choice, human. Connor glanced at her. She was fierce, stunning, and extremely annoyed. And now, apparently his wife. Well, he muttered, this is gonna be interesting. Married to a warrior princess. Connor stared at the massive feast hall before him. The Kari warriors were cheering, drinking, and feasting like they had just witnessed the greatest event of the year. And maybe they had. Because apparently he had just married a warrior princess. Valzyra sat beside him, arms crossed, golden eyes sharp with irritation. Her long, dark hair, now free from its battle braids, cascaded over her shoulders. Her ceremonial armor gleamed under the torchlight. Connor glanced at her. She glared back. So, he said, forcing a smile, is there a return policy on this marriage? Valzyra scoffed. If you challenge every sacred tradition of my people, you had best be ready to face the consequences. Connor sighed. I was just trying to save you. I did not need saving, she said, rolling her eyes. The Kari leader, General Corveth, raised his cup. Tonight we celebrate. The human has won the trial, and the bond is sealed. The crowd roared in approval. Connor leaned toward Valzyra. Okay, so how do we, undo this? She picked up a dagger and stabbed it into the table between them. Connor jumped. Wow, okay, not the best sign for our honeymoon. She smirked. A Kari marriage is a bond of battle. To break it, you would have to challenge me and win. Connor gulped. Oh, right, and how likely is that? Valzyra tilted her head, looking him up and down. You are quick, clever, but against me, no chance. Connor exhaled, rubbing his forehead. Great, just great. General Corveth slapped him on the back, hard enough to nearly knock the air out of him. Do not look so grim, human. You have won the favor of the greatest warrior in our clan. This is a high honor. Connor forced a chuckle. Yeah, honored is exactly how I feel. So, any chance you guys have a spaceport nearby? Corveth frowned. Why would you wish to leave? You have a place here now. A mate. Soon, you will have offspring to continue your legacy. Connor choked on his drink. I'm sorry. Wogachate. Valzyra sighed. Corveth, do not terrify him. The general laughed. but it is amusing. Connor wiped his face. Okay. Look, no offense, but I really need to get back to my own planet. Corvett's grin faded. The room grew tense. Velzira looked at him. You do not wish to stay. Connor hesitated. She wasn't angry, but there was something else in her voice. A flicker of something deeper. He sighed. Look, I'm just a guy who crash-landed here by accident. I don't belong in a warrior clan. I belong back home. Velzira's gaze hardened. I see. Connor opened his mouth to say something, but a loud horn blast interrupted him. Boom. The entire hall shook. Warriors leaped to their feet, reaching for weapons. A scout rushed inside, eyes wide. General, we are under attack. Connor groaned. Oh, come on. Corvett's expression darkened. Who dares? The scout swallowed hard. It is the Vrekar. Connor frowned. Who? Velzira's golden eyes burned. Slavers. Connor tensed. Oh, that kind of bad. Corvette turned to Velzira. They come for you. They must have learned of your failed binding and wish to take you as a war prize. Velzira clenched her fists. They will not take me. Corvette nodded. Then we fight. Connor sighed. Yeah, okay, sure. Might as well add alien war to the list of today's problems. Velzira smirked. You will stand with us, human. Connor cracked his knuckles. Hey, if I'm accidentally married, I might as well defend my wife, right? Defending the warrior clan. The ground rumbled beneath Connor's feet. Outside the great feast hall, war horns blared, and the distant roar of engines filled the night air. Connor ran beside Velzira, his mind racing. He had crash-landed on this planet, saved an alien warrior princess, accidentally married her, and now he was about to fight in a war. Tell me about these guys, he said, keeping pace with Velzira. The Vrekar are slavers, she growled. They'd raid planets, capture warriors, and sell them across the galaxy. Connor frowned. And they think they can just walk in here and take you. Velzira smirked. They are about to regret their mistake. Outside, the Kari warriors had already formed a battle line. Their armor shimmered in the moonlight, blades gleaming, energy weapons humming with power. Connor swallowed hard. He had no armor, no weapon, just his quick thinking and two fists. Above them, black ships hovered in the sky. Bright blue lights flashed as metal pods slammed into the ground. The pod doors hissed open, revealing the Vrekar raiders. They were tall, gray-skinned aliens with jagged armor and glowing red eyes. Their weapons hummed with deadly energy. A deep voice boomed from the lead ship. Surrender the Kari princess, and we will spare your people. Connor raised an eyebrow. Wow, that's original. Velzira stepped forward. Come and take me, if you dare. The Vrekar leader laughed. Gladly. With a thunderous roar, the Vrekar warriors charged. The Kari answered with a battle cry, sprinting forward, blades clashing, energy blasts flashing across the battlefield. Connor ducked as a Vrekar swung at him with a plasma blade. He rolled aside and kicked the alien's knee, making it stumble. Then, grabbing a discarded Kari spear, he whacked the raider in the face. Okay, that worked, he muttered. Velzira, meanwhile, was a whirlwind of destruction. Her twin blades sliced through enemy ranks like lightning. She dodged, spun, and struck with precision, cutting down foes without hesitation. Connor saw another Vrekar aim a blaster at her back. Oh no, you don't. He grabbed a rock and hurled it at the alien's head. It wasn't elegant, but it hit the mark. The raider stumbled, giving Velzira time to spin around and slice his weapon in half. She glanced at Connor. That was reckless. You're welcome, he shot back. A massive explosion rocked the battlefield. The Vrekar had brought tanks. Connor's stomach dropped. Oh, that's bad. A huge mechanical walker stomped forward, its cannons charging. Velzira cursed. If that fires, it will level our defenses. Connor's mind raced. Then he saw it, a weak spot in the walker's leg armor. Cover me, he shouted. Before she could argue, he sprinted toward the walker. Velzira gritted her teeth. Foolish human. But she cut down enemies around him, clearing his path. Connor reached the walker and leaped onto its leg, climbing up the metal plating. The machine shook as the Vrekar inside tried to shake him off. Not today. He ripped open a side panel, exposing glowing blue energy cables. "Let's see what happens when I pull this," he muttered. With one strong yank, he ripped the cables loose. The walker shuddered. Sparks erupted from its core. Then, boom! The machine collapsed, exploding in a fiery blast. Connor hit the ground hard, coughing from the smoke. Velzura was suddenly at his side, eyes wide. "You took down a war machine, alone." Connor grinned weakly. "Yeah, I'm kinda amazing like that." She stared at him for a moment. Then, to his surprise, she smiled. For the first time since he met her, Velzura actually smiled at him. Connor blinked. "Wait, was that, did I just impress you?" She stood, offering him a hand. "Perhaps." Connor took it, pulling himself up. General Corveth roared in triumph. "The human fights with honor. The battle is ours." The remaining Vrekar, seeing their leader defeated, turned and fled to their ships. As the battlefield fell silent, Velzura turned to Connor. "Maybe," she said, "you do belong here after all." Connor smirked. "I was hoping you'd say that." A warrior's honor and a human's trouble. The fires of battle had burned out, leaving only smoke and scattered debris across the battlefield. The Kari warriors stood victorious, their weapons raised in triumph. Connor wiped soot and sweat from his face as he looked around. The Vrekar were gone, their damaged ships retreating into the night sky. He had survived, somehow. Velzura approached him, her silver-white hair shimmering in the moonlight. She examined him with sharp violet eyes. "You fought well, human." Connor grinned. Was that an actual compliment? She crossed her arms, perhaps. Before he could say something witty, General Corvath stepped forward. The towering Kari warlord pounded his fist against his chest, his crimson armor glinting. "You, Connor, have proven yourself a warrior in battle. You saved our princess. You destroyed the enemy's machine of war. And now..." Connor noticed the entire village was staring at him. "You must be honored properly," Corveth finished. Connor blinked. "Honored how?" A deep cheer erupted from the Kari warriors. Velzura tensed. "They are calling for a blood oath," she muttered. Connor frowned. "That doesn't sound like something I'd enjoy." Corvath laughed heartily. "It is the highest honor among our kind. A warrior who saves the life of a Kari princess must be bound to her in eternal unity." Connor felt his stomach drop. Wait, bound? As in? Velzira let out an exasperated sigh. As in marriage. Connor coughed. "Again? Didn't we already do this by accident?" Corvath ignored him. "Tonight, we celebrate your strength. Tomorrow, we complete the bond." The warriors cheered louder. Connor turned to Velzura. "You're not actually okay with this, right?" Velzira's jaw tightened. "The blood oath is sacred. Refusing it would bring great dishonor." Connor groaned. "I didn't even mean to get married once. Now I have to do it again." Corvath clapped him on the back, nearly knocking the air from his lungs. "Tonight, we feast." The warriors grabbed Connor and carried him off before he could protest. A feast of warriors. The great hall of the Kari was filled with firelight and laughter. Plates of roasted meats, exotic fruits, and strange glowing drinks covered the long wooden tables. Connor sat beside Velzira, still trying to process everything. Around them, warriors shared battle stories, sang war songs, and slammed their mugs together. He leaned toward Velzira. "Are we seriously just going along with this?" She took a slow sip from her drink. "The alternative is dishonoring my people." Connor sighed. "Great. So my options are become an alien husband or get stabbed for offending a room full of warriors." Velzira smirked. "Now you understand." A burly Kari warrior sat across from them, grinning. His battle scars lined his blue skin, and his fangs gleamed. "You fight well, human," the warrior said. Connor shrugged. "Thanks. I try not to die when people shoot at me." The warrior laughed. "Tomorrow you become one of us. The true Kari." Connor opened his mouth to protest, but then the warrior slammed a huge goblet in front of him. Drink. Connor eyed the glowing blue liquid inside. It bubbled ominously. Velzira whispered, "You might not want to." Too late. The warriors cheered loudly, watching him expectantly. Connor sighed. Oh, what the hell? He downed the drink in one gulp. At first, nothing happened. Then, his vision blurred. His head spun. Velzira winced. That was fireblood wine. It's meant for Kari warriors. Connor's body felt like it was on fire. Oh, that's strong. The warriors roared with laughter as Connor slumped onto the table. Velzira sighed, shaking her head. Foolish human. She picked up his goblet and finished it in one go. The warriors cheered even louder. Connor, barely conscious, grinned up at her. "You're kinda awesome," he slurred. Velzira smirked. "Try to stay conscious for your own wedding." Connor groaned. "I regret everything." Connor woke up to the sound of drums, loud, pounding, and very, very painful. He groaned and sat up, his head spinning. His mouth tasted like he had swallowed a volcano. "What happened?" he muttered. Velzira stood over him, arms crossed. She looked as composed as ever, her silver-white hair perfectly in place despite the chaos of the previous night. "You accepted the blood oath," she said. Connor blinked. "I did what?" Velzira sighed. "You drank the ceremonial wine. You cheered with the warriors. You accepted their gifts. And now," she motioned toward the open doors. Connor stumbled to his feet and peeked outside. A massive crowd had gathered. The Kari warriors were dressed in their ceremonial armor. Banners waved in the wind. A towering stone altar stood at the center, decorated with alien flowers and weapons. Connor's stomach dropped. "This is a wedding ceremony," he realized. Velzira nodded. "Yes, and you are the groom." Connor ran a hand down his face. "You could have stopped me, you know." She smirked. "I tried." Connor took a deep breath. Okay, maybe I can talk my way out of this." Velzira raised an eyebrow. "You are about to tell an entire civilization that their sacred warrior tradition is a mistake." Connor winced. "That sounds like a bad idea." She nodded. "A very bad idea." Before Connor could respond, a horn blew. The warriors parted, and General Korvath stepped forward. His crimson armor gleamed in the sunlight, and his deep booming voice shook the air. "The human has proven his strength in battle. He has won the right to take the blood oath with our princess. Today, we witnessed their union." The crowd cheered. Connor swallowed. "I think I'm gonna be sick." Velzira sighed. "Just stand still, say the words, and..." Boom. A massive explosion rocked the cliffs. The cheers turned into shouts. Warriors grabbed their weapons. Connor spun around. In the distance, a fleet of dark ships descended from the sky. Velzira's expression hardened. "The Vrekar." General Korvath drew his blade. "The cowards return." Connor tensed. He knew the Vrekar wouldn't give up so easily. A holographic projection flickered to life above them. A tall, insect-like alien with glowing red eyes and chitinous armor sneered down at them. "Foolish Kari," it hissed. "You think you've won. We do not forget, and we do not forgive." Connor groaned. Why do bad guys always say that? The Vrekar commander's gaze snapped to him. "You, human," it spat. "You have interfered with our conquest for the last time." Connor crossed his arms. "Yeah, well, I have some bad news for you. I really hate bullies." The commander's mandibles twitched. "Then you will die with them." The hologram vanished. A second later, the Vrekar ships opened fire. A wedding or a war? The Kari warriors leaped into action. Shields clashed, swords drew, and battle horns blared across the valley. Connor turned to Velzira. "We're postponing the wedding, right?" She grabbed two curved blades from the altar. "We fight first, then we talk." Connor sighed. "Yeah, that sounds about right." A Vrekar dropship smashed into the ground nearby, its doors hissing open. Alien soldiers poured out, their energy rifles glowing. Connor grabbed the nearest weapon, a Kari war spear, and braced himself. The Vrekar soldiers charged. The first one swung its clawed hand at Connor. He ducked, rolled, and jabbed the spear into its armor. Sparks flew as the alien collapsed. Another Vrekar aimed its rifle at him. Before it could fire, Velzyra appeared behind it. She twisted, slashing her twin blades through its chest. The alien crumpled. She glanced at Connor. "Try not to die before the wedding." Connor grinned. "I'll do my best." More Vrekar descended from the sky. Energy blasts rained down, scorching the ground. Korvath roared, "Defend the village." Connor grabbed a fallen energy pistol and opened fire. The battlefield was chaos, warriors clashing, explosions shaking the earth. But Connor wasn't afraid. He had faced worse, and he wasn't about to let some bug-eyed warlord ruin his wedding day. Blaster fire lit up the sky as Connor ducked behind a fallen pillar. The Vrekar warriors were everywhere, their sleek insect-like armor shimmering under the twin suns. The Kari fought back fiercely, their blades clashing against the enemy's energy shields. Velzyra moved like a storm, her twin blades slicing through Vrekar warriors with effortless precision. Her silver-white hair whipped in the wind, her eyes burning with the fire of battle. She landed beside Connor, her breathing steady. "This is bad." Connor gritted his teeth. "Yeah, I figured that out when they started dropping from the sky." A Vrekar general stepped forward, taller than the rest, its chitinous armor gleaming black like obsidian. It raised a clawed hand, and the battlefield fell silent. "Insolent creatures," it hissed. "Your resistance is pointless. Surrender, and we may spare your weak." Connor peered over the pillar. "Wow, they always have to do the whole surrender or die speech, don't they?" Velzyra's grip on her weapons tightened. "We never surrender." The general tilted its head. "Then you will be the first to die, princess." Connor's heart dropped. The Vrekar general lunged. Velzyra twisted away just in time, blocking its serrated blade with one of her own. Sparks flew as they clashed, the sheer force shaking the ground. Connor's mind raced. He wasn't as fast or as strong as Velzyra, but he had one advantage. Humans cheated. He scanned the battlefield, his eyes locked onto a Vrekar war drone, floating above the fight, scanning for threats. Connor grinned. He dashed toward a fallen energy rifle, scooping it up. "Cover me." Velzyra, locked in battle, barely spared him a glance. "You better not die, human." Connor sprinted through the battlefield, dodging blaster fire and leaping over fallen warriors. A Vrekar soldier blocked his path, raising a plasma blade. Connor threw a rock at its face. It stumbled back, confused. Connor punched it. It collapsed. "Wow," Connor muttered. "Didn't think that would work." He reached the war drone, yanked open its control panel, and started rewiring it. The Vrekar general snarled, pressing Velzyra back. "Your human flees like a coward." Velzyra smirked. "No, he's doing something stupid." Connor finished rewiring. The drone's lights flickered, then turned green. It spun in the air, scanning the battlefield. Then it targeted the Vrekar army. A blaring alarm echoed as the drone broadcasted a false command. "All units, read to re-8 order ko and favai armid." The Vrekar warriors froze. Some hesitated, their instincts screaming at them to obey. Others backed away, confused. The general turned. "What are you doing? Stand and." The drone blasted the general. The massive Vrekar stumbled back, smoke rising from its chest. Connor stood behind it, grinning. "Guess you guys don't have two-factor authentication." The Kari warriors roared. Seizing the moment, Velzyra swept forward, her blades flashing. She drove them into the Vrekar general's chest, twisting. The alien let out a final guttural snarl before collapsing. The Vrekar army broke. Some fled into their ships. Others fired blindly, panicked. Within moments, their entire invasion force crumbled. Connor dusted off his hands. That actually worked. Velzyra approached him, breathing heavily. "You are either incredibly smart or incredibly lucky." Connor flashed a cocky grin. "Why not both?" She rolled her eyes, but she smiled. General Korvath raised his sword. "Victory belongs to the Kari and to the human who saved us." The warriors cheered. Connor exhaled, letting the adrenaline fade. He turned to Velzyra. "So, Do I still have to do the whole wedding thing? She crossed her arms. You just defeated an entire invasion force using trickery and bravado. Connor nodded. That's a yes, isn't it? She smirked. That's a yes. Connor groaned. The battlefield was quiet now, except for the flickering flames and the distant hum of retreating Vrekar warships. The Kari warriors stood tall, their violet capes flowing in the desert wind, watching as the last enemy ships vanished into the sky. Connor let out a long breath. So, we won. General Korvath nodded. We won. A deafening cheer erupted across the warriors. Swords were raised, battle cries echoed, and even the injured roared in victory. Connor turned to Valzira, who was still watching him. All right, he said, brushing dust from his jacket. Now that we're not getting vaporized, can we talk about? She grabbed his collar and kissed him. Connor's mind went blank. It was not a soft, delicate kiss. It was fierce, full of fire, full of victory. When she finally pulled away, she smirked at his stunned expression. You just saved my people, outwitted an entire invasion force, and made the Vrekar flee like frightened prey, she said. You are my husband now. Connor blinked. Wait. What? Korvath laughed heartily. The princess is chosen, human. The bond is sealed. Connor looked around. The entire Kari army was staring at him in approval. Some warriors clapped him on the back. Others saluted. He rubbed his temples. This is moving very fast. Valzira raised an eyebrow. Would you rather go back to your lonely ship, where no one sings your name? Connor hesitated. She gestured to the warriors. Listen. From deep within the ranks, a song began. A battle hymn, low and rumbling at first, then rising like a storm. Warriors pounded their weapons against the ground, their voices chanting his name. Connor the cunning, the trickster of war, the human who made the stars laugh. Connor's chest tightened. He'd spent most of his life drifting. A freelancer, a smuggler, a guy who took jobs and never stayed anywhere long enough to matter. But now, he mattered. He looked at Valzira. She was fierce, terrifying, and completely impossible. And yet, standing here, listening to the warriors honor him, he realized something. He didn't want to leave. All right, Connor said. I'll stay. The warriors cheered even louder. Valzira smiled. Then prepare yourself, husband. Connor sighed. For what? She smirked. For the wedding ceremony. Later, the Kari celebration was nothing like a human wedding. There were flaming swords, aerial duels, and entire feasts made of things Connor couldn't pronounce. At some point, someone handed him a warrior's cloak, deep violet and lined with gold. He wasn't sure if that meant he was officially royalty or just really well-dressed. As the night went on, he found himself laughing more than he had in years. Valzira sat beside him, her usual sharpness softened. You are different from any warrior I have known. Connor smirked. Because I win my fights with cheap tricks. She shook her head. Because you turn battle into art. Connor raised a brow. Is that a compliment? She leaned in, her voice lower. It is a promise. For once, Connor had no witty comeback. 1 year later, the legend of Connor the Cunning spread across the stars. The human who defeated an army, outwitted the impossible, and won the heart of a warrior princess. Some said he was a tactician. Some said he was a madman. The truth was, he was just a guy who refused to lose. And in the end, that was enough.